By the time lawmakers get back, I guess late Monday, Tuesday, we're talking about basically 4 days to figure this out. Are you banking on a shutdown, or could the Senate come to the rescue?
Now, the Senate could come to the rescue, and there is some scenarios where that might work, but it's looking unlikely at the moment because the House is so dug in opposing, any resolution here, and they're so fragmented in what they really want and their demands, and Speaker McCarthy is in a very precarious position. That said, for sure, the Senate Republicans and Democrats could come up with something to avoid this in a heartbeat.
Mike, the issue is, though, of course, at the end of the day, will Speaker McCarthy still have his job?
Yeah, I mean, the problem for Speaker McCarthy is he used a lot of his political capital with his caucus to avoid that default, a potential default on the U.S. debt earlier this year, which would have been tumultuous for markets. Now he's coming into this shutdown debate with problems on his right flank. He spent most of the summer trying to satisfy his right flank, and they keep talking about a motion to vacate the chair, which would be an attempt to overthrow him, and just 5 of them might be able to do that. So he's got that in the background. There's this theoretical possibility that the Democrats could come in and save him, at least temporarily, if he agreed to something. But if you're the Republican speaker, you kind of want to be able to depend on the Republicans.
Indeed. Let's hear from that Republican speaker, Kevin McCarthy, talking to reporters earlier today.
I still believe if you shut down, you're in a weaker position. You need the time to fund the government while you pass all the appropriations.
So does that mean you're going to try to push forward with a Republican CR still?
I would like to. You need to.
He had said just yesterday as well, he can't believe that there are members who just basically want to torch the place, that he can't even get legislation to the floor for debate, certainly in the case of the defense spending bill. He seems more perplexed than we've seen yet.
Yeah, and in that case, he felt like he had people who had given him the impression that they were going to help him at least just get this through this procedural motion so they could debate the defense bill. And it was something where he got surprised, and that is something that's very tough for a Republican leader, for any party leader, to suddenly have your support from your party collapse underneath you without even an advance heads up.
Yeah, right.
So he's in a very tough position here.
We also heard from the White House press secretary today, Karine Jean-Pierre, answering a reporter question about the looming shutdown earlier today.
What they're doing is putting forth incredibly extreme partisan policies forward, and and saying, hey, we have to get this done in order to keep a deal that they made back in May. And so this should not be happening. It should not be happening. And so, look, we're going to continue to be very clear. What we're saying to them privately is what we're saying to all of you publicly, is that they need to do their job.
Courtney, in the midst of all this, we also have Ukraine aid really entangled in some of this. And because we couldn't even see the defense bill be debated on the floor because of some members of the right flank of McCarthy's party voted no to the rule. Now, today, what we've learned is not the supplemental aid that the president has requested, but that security funding that has been in defense budgets for years, going back to at least 2021, maybe even as early as 2014. They're going to vote on that separately. How big of an issue is this Ukraine funding or security aid or just plain aid when it comes to really the paralysis we're seeing in Congress?
Sure. I mean, as a fraction of the defense budget, it's incredibly minuscule. It's only about $300 million out of an $800 billion bill. But it's perhaps a harbinger of a wider fight over a much larger and much more significant for Ukraine supplemental funding request from the White House for $24 billion.
Well, of course, President Zelensky came to Washington following his visit to the UN General Assembly, where I know you spent some time this week. Then on to Canada. Listen to Zelensky speaking before the Canadian Parliament.
It is genocide what Russian occupiers are doing to Ukraine. And when we want to win, when we call on the world to support us, it is not just about an ordinary conflict It is about saving lives of millions of people.
How successful was this tour, recalling his visit to Washington at the end of last year, which was, I think, peak level of support for funding the war in Ukraine? How many minds might he have changed this time?
I think it was certainly a different climate here in Washington this week. You discussed some of the Republican opposition to continued funding for Ukraine. Even in New York, at the General Assembly and in the UN Security Council, Zelensky may have to contend with a little bit more skepticism, a bit of war fatigue, as we're seeing the costs continue to rise for allies and partners around the world.
So do you call this trip a success?
Perhaps a measured success, but the need is great, and he's going to continue to ask for additional weapons. And there is an acknowledgement, I think, broadly among U.S. and foreign partners that this is going to go on for some time and that there may be some reevaluations in order.
Courtney, though, you and I did report today that he's getting those ATACMS missiles, or at least a little bit of a few of those ATACMS missiles. Do you think this is the inroad Zelensky wanted to see?
I think President Zelensky has said repeatedly that he's always going to need more, and he's going to continue to request more. The Biden administration committed to sending the Army Tactical Missile System, or ATACMS, but the numbers are small to begin with, and may increase.
Well, so as we move into the week ahead here, just to try to put a bow on this, we've got the debate over Ukraine funding and a big question about where it's going to land. Mike, when will you know next week that the government's shutting down? Will this actually go right up to midnight on Friday?
I think it'll probably go up to midnight Friday, possibly midnight Saturday. But I would say that one thing that President Zelensky probably did that'll be important is buck up his supporters in Congress. He may not be able to convince the right flank, but by bucking up those supporters, those are the majority. And ultimately, down the road in this fight over the shutdown, it will be a bipartisan majority that settles where they land. And if he can buck them up enough to resist the right, then that's where they'll land.